morning, everyone, and welcome to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I am Attorney Coral Plus, host of the show, which is sponsored each and every week by Columbia Savings and Loan Association. Um, Last week we were just really busy with the annual meeting for the bank, and so I regret that I wasn't able to be here, but we are back. And I came with reinforcements with me this morning in the studio. Two of the members of the board of directors for Columbia Savings and Loan Association. So I would like to reintroduce both of these people. Doc Fuller, you've been here quite a lot.
Quite a bit.
You've
Yep.
hosted the show times that I wasn't able to be here, but Dr. Mose Fuller is here. And Dr. Fuller, please say hello to everyone.
Hello. How's everyone doing?
Okay, and thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
And I also have a more elusive director.
Yeah.
Stephen Moore is here from the board of directors of Columbia Savings. Steve, say hello to everyone.
How you doing? It's a pleasure to be here for you, Carl.
Yep, and so glad to have you both. It's been a while since I've had you two on the show.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. We have celebrated 100 years of business with Columbia and now 101 years. And one of the things that we did last week, I mentioned that we had an annual meeting. You guys want to talk a little bit about what is an annual meeting and what did that entail for Columbia last week? Doc, you want to take that one?
Yeah. What it entailed is that members of the bank, they came in and we all met together and we talked about kind of like a little history of the bank and about what the bank actually means to the community. And then we got to go over, we went over a few internal things at the bank, how well the bank is doing. The bank is doing well and things like that. And it was kind of like an update on some things that the members need to know.
Right.
And then we had a nice little scrumptious, must I say, scrumptious lunch.
Got to shout out to Latoya for that one.
Yeah, it was nice, man. It was
I'll
really
toot her
nice.
horn a little bit more
Yeah.
even later in the show, but yeah.
And my wife liked it and everybody really liked it. So, it's just a good kind of like fellowship time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what community banking is really all about. And then you can reminisce about, when Columbia Savings and Loan was started over 100 years ago, and why it was started. See, we don't ever want to forget that, Brother Steve. You
Right.
know what I mean? Because that's part of who we are, and our reason of why we are around now, 100 years later,
Mm-hmm.
And dealing with some of the same type of stuff that we was dealing with 100 years ago. But that's all right, though. We survived the storm. So then the celebration was that reflection, the membership
Right.
coming together. And you had a variety of people coming. Then you had a chance to see who's part of the bank.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, access to capital is really the genesis and the reason the bank was started.
Yeah.
When you really break it down and think about it. So when you look back to 1924 and you go, what were they dealing with at that time? Access to capital,
Access capital,
fair treatment,
fair trade,
housing,
housing.
worrying about those members of that community coming in and taking over others' jobs. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it?
Sounds very familiar.
I mean, it's been 100 years. It's been a ton of history and a lot of things that have happened, but we'd be remiss to not say we're not still dealing with a lot of the same obstacles now.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's just critical to keep in mind and consider as we keep going forward and moving and trying to be innovative in our thoughts and our policies and really about next steps and what's best for the community.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that I don't think anyone really understands is, we go through a lot.
Yeah.
To just keep things going, to fight the good fight. And, I'm just so in awe of the work that Ernie's put in and the work that the wonderful staff down there
Yeah.
is just doing. When you look at what Latoya is able to accomplish, we have Yumika down there just running things and taking care of all of our clients that come through. it's just incredible to see that we have a Jamila who stepped up and done wonderful things internally for our bank to just make sure that everything's just so much easier for everybody, and everybody's wearing multiple hats down there. And
Right.
we're doing the same thing as a board, as management, just working hard to remember that it's not about us,
Right.
and it never has been and it never will be. So that's kind of the thing that gives us a lot of drive, when you have them tough days and you kind of just like,
But you know what though, Steve, though, even with that being said though, I do want to take a step back because I know what your background and credentials are,
yes,
to be on this board. But the people that are listening, I just said, "Oh, Steve Moore is here,"
Yeah.
without really telling people who you are, what your background is, what makes you unique for the role that you're in.
Mhm.
So I do want to take a minute to talk about that. But kind of doing this in an orderly fashion. Ernie, you and excuse me, Doc Fuller, you and Ernie came on the board at the same time,
Mhm.
the same day.
Same
And
day.
George Gary had reached out and asked the two of you to come and join the board of directors of Columbia, and you started day one together.
Yeah, they won together.
Yeah, and then at some point, Mr. Gary decided it was time for him to retire. And at that point, there was another person that was brought in to run the bank as the president and CEO. And I believe that that was about a 4 month time frame that happened. And then there was another transition. I know that you and Ernie talked about this at the annual meeting last week, that there was a search committee. The two of you kind of spearheaded and you
Yep.
interviewed people and you tried to find someone to come in and be the president and CEO. But ultimately, it landed in Ernie's lap. And so he did step up and agree and to take it on, to be the president of Columbia. Otherwise, there might not have been a
May not
future
have
for
been.
Columbia.
right, yeah.
Columbia might have just been done with. But for Ernie agreeing to step up and take on this leadership responsibility, and then you right by his side then on the board. And then Steve, what year did you join the board?
That would have been, I believe, what, 2021.
A few
Okay.
years after.
Yeah.
Yep, that sounds about right. Now, Steve, talk about your background a little bit because you're unique. You're a former regulator
Right.
and you've got prior banking experience. Talk about that a little bit. I want the people to know who you are.
As far as banking is concerned, I've been doing this now for 21 years. I think, yeah, it's my
Wow.
21st or 22nd year, and being involved in either finance or banking directly. Um, I started off just, regular personal banker, but then quickly transitioned into managing other bankers. So essentially there was like a bank assist line that this M&I, actually, they no longer exist. They're BMO Harris now.
Right.
But back then, M&I was the bank, and so I was the banker that other bankers would reach out to during the day if they had questions, issues, things that they needed to work out, whether it was compliance, operations, all of that. I think I did that for about 7, 8 years. I then moved over to the Department of Financial Institutions. So literally reviewing the records. My specialty kind of comes with financing for loans. So auto loans in particular was where I really spearheaded a lot of that effort into that. Was there for about 8 years. And then I moved over into the fintech world. So that's, finance technology, anybody that's got a phone, an app that logs into online banking, I probably touched it at some point. So just more of the user interface, working with that every day. We work with over a few hundred credit unions and banks doing that. So I think what really kind of sets me separate from what we're trying to accomplish here at the bank is I'm local. I grew up right here. From here, you don't see black regulators even in the country. They just don't exist.
Wow.
Especially
And we've got two of them.
we got two in one state,
between you and Ernie.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's just not often. So we know the things that they're looking for. We know what they want. It takes resources. It takes time. We understand that. We're bending over backwards to acquiesce to a lot of the demands that they have. And that's part of the fight. Is we want the same thing that they want. Um, but again, that's what we're here to make sure that we can do our best to correct it and still serve our community and our members.
Yes. No, absolutely right. And I couldn't have said it better, Steve. But I'm so glad that you talked about your background and a little more details because, I want people to know that
Mhm.
who you are and what your background is.
Mhm.
Dr. Fuller's been here many times. I think the audience is largely familiar with who you are. And we've talked about it a lot of times. But Steve, I just want, because you're one of these people that quietly works so hard, behind the scenes.
Mhm.
And you don't come up a lot or step up a lot to the microphone. Like even last week at the annual meeting, and you were sitting in the audience. But when people started asking questions, who did I look to? Who did I turn to? Who was given the answers and the responses, between you and the president? That was, that's where the wealth of experience lies, with what you two bring to the board. So thank you for all that you have done and all that I know you'll continue to do. But it's just very important for me, for the people to understand that, there is knowledge and there's experience and there's expertise. Even though I know that we're all relatively young-ish,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But for you to sit there and say 21 years experience doing this and that means something.
Yeah.
And you are the baby of the bunch.
I prefer it like that though. I don't mind being in the background.
Yeah.
I like
He's the
that.
baby of the bunch. You
Yeah.
got that right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, there definitely is regulatory experience, banking experience from operational standpoint, even just from a more of a managerial overview as well, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we all have learned as we've gone through this process. The laws have changed, a lot of the regulations have changed, things that applied even 5 years ago are not applicable anymore. The economy is up and
Change.
down.
Yep.
So to even try to plan for that is such a moving hard target to hit
Right.
that there's much larger financial institutions dealing with the same issues,
Right.
going through the same things.
Right.
So it's not we're not isolated in that sense. So I don't feel bad when I sit back and kind of think about some of the things that we discuss and go through because everybody's feeling it.
Right.
It's an unstable world. Well, you got to make the best of it.
Mhm. Yeah. So we had been talking, Doc Fuller, you and I, in prior shows, and um, part of the some of the questions and the comments from even the annual meeting last week, just talking about some of the challenges, the hurdles that specifically Black banks need to clear. That there's different challenges depending upon the type of institution, and one of them was limited access to capital. And we talked about the bank's technology and infrastructure is outdated and needs modernization to meet today's cybersecurity and compliance standards.
Yep.
And so that was one of the things that we talked about. And Steve, can you talk about that a little bit as relates to Columbia and the work that you've done? You shared this at the meeting last week, but I'd like to share it at large if you could, with what you're comfortable with sharing in terms of where we are with all of that.
So, I mean, as far as what we can actually talk about right now, there's been a lot of work that's been put into what we'll call configuration for some of the things that we plan for the future, right? So that's online banking, that's mapping things correctly to make sure that when we are ready to turn some of this on, we can. We know what some of the challenges are, but a lot of that takes money. And let's just get right to it. That's what has to happen for us to be able to get to that point. We want to make sure we do this in a strategic way. We want to make sure that we're compliant when we do engage in those kind of conversations, because you have to make sure you protect people's money. At the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. I would love to fast forward some of that, but you got to be smart about how you do it. You got to be smooth about when we turn things like that on. There's no unpacking that and putting it back in the box. It's too late.
Right.
So we do have a good plan in place. I think it's something that could be implemented and deployed if we have the proper resources, and I don't really see a reason why we can't do it. But just know we have worked on that, and um, we've truly considered it, and I would love for it to be on, but until things are done and set up properly, we just can't afford to take that risk.
Well, resources.
Correct.
You said it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the bottom line.
It takes money.
Right.
I mean, it just does.
And that's, I think, what people don't understand. People think it's simple. You know, I
Right.
have people ask me all the time, why aren't you guys online?
Right.
Well, you know, there's some hurdles to clear before you can get there.
Ton of regulation that goes into that.
Mhm.
A ton of regulation goes into that.
And then even once, let's just say hypothetically, once it's turned on, you still need people that are going to be there that can be customer service representatives.
You got to
people
monitor
that, Yep, it has to be monitored.
Mhm.
People have to be able to call in and ask for guidance, or call in and ask a question about the process. And all of that takes money.
Yes.
So, Dr. Fuller, do Black people have any money?
They have money. Black people really do have money, and Black people know they have money. But you know what it comes down to, as a pastor, and what you see with people is sometimes how we handle our money, and how we think about money,
Mm-hmm.
and then how we think about banking also. Historically speaking, with the elderly population, older population, some Black folks don't want to put their money in banks. I just anti-banking. They just don't want to put money in bank. They'd rather put it in a sock and put it under the mattress. You know what I mean? That type of mentality. And then sometimes if you don't modernize a bank, then you get into that same mode.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I would say, listen to Steve talk, and when you look at Columbia Savings and Loan, that is one of the singular things that really distresses the Columbia Savings and Loan Bank, is that the bank didn't modernize when it should have.
Right.
And for whatever, and I guess, Steve, that goes back to leadership too.
Yep.
The type of leadership that you have to have. You have to have a progressive leadership, a visionary leadership. That if the bank, if I'm going to have I'm going to have a new bank. I'm going to try to have all the new technologies that I can have to make sure that bank function the way that it should. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the things when you look at Columbia Safe, that would probably want to be the only thing that, that can really, hold a bank back. And then when somebody asks you, when are you going to get online banking? Well, you see, that's today, online bank, everybody have that.
Just look at fast and moves.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at how did you feel 3 years ago when P2P first came out? So that I'm talking about, like, Zelle, Apple Pay, these type of things, where you mean to tell me I can send money to somebody else who doesn't even have a bank account with the same bank I got? I heard the same worry during those conversations then, as far as how are you guys going to protect my money? And they overcame those hurdles. It's the same thing of, we just got to get to the right point where we can have those conversations and bring in the other experts that are going to be needed, so that when we're ready to deploy it, it's done right. But it ain't cheap.
Right.
I'll tell you that.
Right. No, that's very true, which, kind of raises one of the other bullet points that we talked about last week at the meeting, and that was difficulty competing with larger financial institutions.
Right.
Larger institutions that have the money to deploy these things, that we're talking about, which of course is going to attract the customer base. I mean, all of us now, like myself included, that yes, I have an account at Columbia, but I also have to have business and other accounts at other institutions that I need to do that now because of some of the limitations that we're still working to overcome. But it's one thing to have some money at Columbia and then other money elsewhere. And it's another thing to have all your money elsewhere.
Yeah, we get it. You got to live. You got to live. People got bills, and, you need to take care of what you got to take care of. We're not saying that by, a long shot at all. But it's just, if we're going to say we're going to support this thing, we're going to really stand up for it, but we don't have any skin in the game. I mean, it's all lip service.
Right. Exactly.
See, that's what happened when in 1924, when Audie and them decided to start the bank. They were I'm quite sure they didn't have all that money at Columbia Savings and Loan. And so basically, we have to be uh, progressive thinking, so to speak. You really want to you should really want to see this bank really make a difference in the community, and we know that it can do that if the people really get behind it and support it. Like
Right.
Steve said, you don't have to have all your money there. I don't have all mine there. I
Right.
have it in different places, but you better believe I got some of it there.
Right.
And then because I know what the bank has done for me. See, it's kind of like a change in your level of thinking when you're thinking about money and thinking about community and thinking about legacy and thinking about the future, and thinking about your grandkids and kids and how they can buy into stuff that reflect who we are.
Right.
And Columbia is that type of institution. We want to buy into the bank. We want to make sure that it's there for our grandkids, for our kids, our grandkids, our kids' kids. And that's what the Halliards was thinking about.
Right.
Sure, they were thinking about that. So they wasn't young when they came here, but they came here with a vision, and they came in with they saw that community needed a need. And with Columbia Saving and Loan, you always had to be thinking in that philosophical sense. You said, how can I add value to this community by banking where I bank at?
Right.
It's easy. You can go out here and bank anywhere you want. But you're
Right.
talking about adding value to a community and transforming the community that we know that need to be transformed.
Right.
It's
just very interesting that, you would have the majority of your funds in a financial institution that would probably never give you a loan.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a stone cold fact.
Sure is.
That's a stone cold fact.
They would never do business with you.
Yeah. And churches, and especially churches, I know that as a fact.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that when we got our loan to buy our church with only 2 years experience, 2 years in existence, there would not have been another bank in this city that would have lent us money, except a bank like Columbia Savings and Loan, and except like a president of that bank at that time.
Right.
See, that's the stuff that we can't miss, man.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about we in for the struggle, we in for the community. We want to make sure that we lift up our community. But then you got to make sacrifices. And for us, we never quit making sacrifices because that's just the way the society is structured. It's always compressing, pushing against you, trying to degrade your progress.
Right.
I mean, if you look at everything that's happening, you in this stuff, the financial stuff, a lot deeper than your expertise and banking and all that stuff. Man, you can see how it's pressed. We don't stand a chance against the big banks, but the ones that make a difference is those core investors, those core depositors.
Right.
That look, I'm gonna go there, and I know that might be some limitations. That Columbia having some limitations, in terms of curriculum, in terms of structure, in terms of technology or whatever. But I'm still gonna be a part of this bank because I know it's gonna make a difference in the long run in this community and in the city of Milwaukee.
Right.
You got, like what you say, over 200-some thousand black folks living around that bank.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's no economic reason why the bank should be struggling at all. I'm not saying that it is, but I'm just saying that we should have, whatever we need, we should have.
Well, right.
Because the people are there.
Right. Yeah, because
and you need people, don't you?
Well, and what we're talking about is, growing and advancing and being able to implement the technology, eventually when we have the resources,
there you go.
In place to be able to do that. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to be content where we are. We want to, appeal to the younger generations that are used to having their banks right there on their phones. Well, we've got to clear a hurdle in order to get there, and that is why we're encouraging businesses to make deposits in the bank. We're glad to have grandma and grandpa come and open an account for little junior for $50, but we need $250,000 depositors as well. And there are business people and other people out here in the community that have those resources. Why not put them in Columbia where they can grow interest and as they would in any other institution? Why not do that with Columbia? And we'll come right back to talk about that a little bit further after the break. I think it's time that we've got to take a little break, but we will be right back with more Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I've got Director Stephen Moore and Director Dr. Mose Fuller in the studio this morning, and we'll be right back. Back with Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I'm Attorney Coral Pleas, and I am very fortunate to have in the studio with me this morning Dr. Mose Fuller. Doc, say hello to everyone again.
How's everyone doing? Good to be back.
Yep. And Director Steve Moore from our Columbia Board of Directors.
Yes,
Steve, say
indeed.
hello
How
again.
you doing?
Yeah. So you two have just brought a lot of wealth of information to the discussion today. I'm so glad to have you both here. Um, and we've been talking about some of the challenges with respect to
Mm-hmm.
having a black bank in general and
Mhm.
Columbia in particular. I
Mhm.
think banks across the country would
Right.
echo the concerns that we've raised about, just getting deposits because capital is king,
Mhm.
cash is king. I don't know, whatever the expression is. I'm botching it, but you guys know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. But let's talk about some of the accomplishments that have been made in the past several years. I believe that Ernest Jones became the president of Columbia about 4 years ago. You guys were there then, and I came a little bit later, but
Yeah.
you two, have been in the trenches with him this whole time. So I just had a kind of some bullet points here of accomplishments that have been made since he took the lead role in this bank. And one of the biggest one was that you all brought in over $5 million in new deposits, which has assisted the bank in its mission to provide loans for home ownership within our
Mhm.
community. Go ahead and comment on that, either one of you.
Useful, see, Ernie and I came on together, and I kind of like, watched the hard work and the tenacity of President Jones in terms of his commitment to the bank and making sure that the bank is productive and doing what it should be doing, in terms of serving the community. And so that's what I saw. He always talked. He and I used to talk a lot about that. And you talked earlier about Ernie really not, looking to be the president of the bank. It just got, placed in his lap. I said, well, man, sometimes that's the way it is. I said, but the main thing you have to remember is that you have the expertise to be the president. You former regulator, you're an attorney, you've been around bank for years, and you've seen some of the banks in the community closed, closed, and you say you don't want to be around, you don't want that to happen again. And so, you have the drive. So I think when it comes to, a bank like where we are and what a bank that Columbia needs is really good leadership and insightful leadership and really knowing how to pick people and work with people and have people to be productive. You know, I've been there since the transitions. People that was working at the bank with years, and then all of a sudden they decided that that they was gonna retire or whatever, but the bank still had to go on. And I think you
Mm.
came in, Sister Core, Attorney Players, just at that time, and but it's the hard work to hold it together. I don't know where he got you from, but he made a good pick. You guys must have knew each other. You guys both attorneys, so you had to know each other. And
Yeah.
I just think that so getting the right people in there, Steve make a big difference. And I watched the transitions, and so you know I must say you've been one of the hardest working ones there.
She's the biggest addition.
Yeah, it
She
really is.
really is, from an operational standpoint, as far as someone that's boots on the ground every day, handling a lot of the things that need to be taken care of. Right? You walk in. I can't think of any other financial institution that you could walk in and literally talk to someone that's actually a decision maker for any bank. You got to schedule appointments, and you got to hope that they are going to even return your call. But I mean, you're right there. You and the wonderful women working down there. Again, they do a tremendous job. I think they're the biggest accomplishment
Yeah.
with the bank, as far as really sitting down there, getting the work done, and taking care of business.
Right.
I think that's a great optic for us
Hmm.
to have strong women handling business down there that know their stuff, that are on top of it, and we're just there to support you. You know what
You
I
know, I'm
mean?
laughing a little bit because Latoya and I were joking this morning about the spirit of Artie Halyard,
Yeah.
you know, being being there and you know, just moving us
Yes.
to do what we're doing because I appreciate the compliments and I receive it. And I won't say but, I'll say and I want to acknowledge, you know, my team that they
Exactly.
make it possible
The
for
bank
me to do the
has a
things I do.
history of having women in charge.
Yeah.
Think
Yes.
about that. You
Yes.
know, having female presidents or, management, they they did that 70 years ago
Yeah.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Right.
was not a this is not a new concept
Right.
for what's happening right now. It's
Yeah.
not.
Right.
This is nothing new for this institution.
Yeah.
Right.
So to see it now it should not shock anybody. It shouldn't be
Right.
this big, no. This has been the case for many years over there.
Right.
Um
Well, you know, we have a joke. Um, what if they were calling us the Bank of Little Women?
mhm.
Because I'm 5'4" and I'm the tallest one there, and I'm always telling everybody I've never been the tallest person
Anywhere.
anywhere, but I'm the tallest one on our daily, you know, operations. With Columbia, but you know, so my team they're petite, but they're tough, man.
Yeah.
Don't play with them.
Yep.
Latoya Sykes, our branch manager, I could not do what I do if I didn't know Latoya is holding it down.
Yep.
And you know, just keeping an eye on things, making sure operations are running smoothly, leading the team and supporting the team and being able to meet and interact with customers, you know, when I'm not available to do that. And for me to even come here and do the show,
Sure.
Yeah.
somebody has to be able to run things.
There you go.
There was a time when Doc Fuller and I couldn't be here together because when I couldn't run things there, I needed him
Yep.
Yeah.
at the bank. And so our board would step in and literally play a role at the bank,
Yeah.
as an employee, if you will, but not technically, not legally, but that would be, you know, the role. You'd go in there and, you know, fill in. If I needed to come here for an hour, well, let me make sure that there's proper oversight. So Latoya Sykes holds it down now, and we've got Yumika Miller,
Yep.
who has been a teller with us, and Yumika is just I could set my clock by Yumika. Yumika is reliable, and that's what you must have in that teller
You got
area.
to
That's
have-
critical.
Yumika does not play around. One thing I know when I get up in the morning, Yumika's going to be at work.
Yeah.
Yumika's going to be on time.
Yep.
Yumika's going to hold it down, and I know that about her. That gives me the peace to be
Yes.
able to step away and do other things. And then we've got Jamila, who comes in here and she's brought on as a teller, but she saw a need. Well, we need someone that can open accounts. We need someone to do things that a personal banker would be trained to do. And she stepped up. Okay, there's nobody here right now to show me. All right, I'm computer savvy. Let me get the login. Let me just feel my way around this system. Let me, you know, figure some things out. And, you know, and then we certainly obviously did also implement the proper training for these things, but she took the initiative even before I had a chance to schedule the training to come in and just be hungry to learn so that we could service our customers.
They all have an ambition to learn more, and that's one thing that I love every time I'm in there, just communicating and talking with them, is they've learned something new from the last time I talked to them.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, Steve, I learned this and I learned that, and it's a wonderful thing to hear, because when there is downtime, that's showing me that they're doing something.
Right.
Idle time, what do they say, Doc? Is you the pastor, I'm not gonna go into that one, but
Yeah.
it really does show that when they have a minute or two, they're trying to stay on course for what's happening around them.
Right.
There's been some automation that's done. So
Mhm.
even just from an account opening, concept, we
Right.
have things now that make it a lot easier, so that it's not so paper heavy to get you in and get you out. So
Right.
it doesn't take forever in a day to open an account down there now.
Right.
We can get you in, get your information, you make your deposit, we give you
Mhm.
the documents, and you're on your way.
And I do want to also mention Chris Conrad, even though Chris works remotely.
Right.
If Chris came to the branch every day, Chris is about 6'1", so I guess I would not be the tallest person there anymore. But aside from that, Chris works remotely.
Yep.
And Chris has been a master of our core system. and has really helped everybody to learn and helped everybody to be better. And he's working hard. He's not physically in the branch every day, but he works remotely and he's part of the team. So I want to acknowledge his commitment and the hard work that he's been doing, and continues to do on behalf of Columbia this morning as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, there's been a lot of projects he's spearheaded and taken care of, especially from the mortgages that we have and cleaning
Mhm.
a lot of that up. We're in November now, so everybody's kind of thinking the same thing. Tax season is around the corner, so just getting prepared for that it's been a wonderful thing to have him around to answer questions, even for ourselves. Of hey, Chris, like making sure we're using the right general ledgers and all that kind of stuff. It's just great to have him again jump headfirst and learn it. And now
Right.
we have our kind of own internal person that understands it.
Right.
So again, make things more efficient and fast.
Right. Right. And
Yep.
everybody's been fearless
Yep.
about all that we're doing. So one of the other things that happened is that the savings account passbook was retired.
Yep.
You're laughing, Doc Fuller. Why are you laughing?
Yeah, well, we discuss that sometimes. Me and my wife have a little fun with that. You talking about? Yeah, I can remember, man, long time ago when everybody had passbook, but you don't have that in the 21st.
Yeah.
So
that's
it is. It's a sign of the times,
Yeah.
right? So I gotta tell you the story because it 100% applies. So I take care of my cell phone bill, and one person that's on my cell phone bill is my dad, and his cell phone was so old. The cell company called me and sent me a message and said, "You have 6 months to get a new phone. Otherwise, this one's no longer going to work because the software is so outdated."
wow.
It's the same thing, right?
Same-
Like
I'm laughing,
same
but that's what
system.
happened with our printers.
the
Why we
times
couldn't
have
print
just
checks
passed-
earlier this
yeah,
year.
the times
That's
have
what
passed it
Isn't that
on.
something?
Mm-hmm.
It's a sad thing to see because it is nostalgic to walk in, be able to use it. It's a nice thing to have, and it was it served its purpose. But I just kind of laugh because that's just one of those things where the times just kind of passed it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so you can call it what you want to, growing pains,
Yeah.
left behind or whatever, but then that's the progress we made. See, that's what people got to understand is that banking is like anything else. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yeah.
It's simple as it, but John Maxwell said that everything rises and falls on leadership. It have to be current, it have to be up to date, it have to be progressive. You can't lead in the past.
Right.
You got to lead forward, whatever you want to say, and so that's what's happening to this bank now. I mean, people got the community needs to understand that, and I think at the meeting, the annual meeting, people saw that. They saw young faces. They saw the young women.
Mm-hmm.
When you look, and I never thought about it like that. You look at that team. Most everybody that's there on a daily basis at that bank are women. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I said this. I said, people look at the leadership of our country, and if you had more progressive women in charge of stuff, maybe you would have a better outcome. And looking at things. I'm just saying this, because a lot of times we've shied away from really, putting women in certain profile leadership roles. But I personally, I think I've been around long enough to make an assessment that sometimes we would be better off if that happened. People are qualified just because a person is a woman, you don't think. And that's what's happened with this bank.
I mean,
you got young women now, like you said.
You got to have an equitable representation of the community you serve and obviously our state, right? So I think that speaks to that of that they are the community that we serve. So it's who not then better than to have them doing that, So I think it goes back to it, and even to go back to the initial point that you brought up, Coral, about the $5 million in deposits. Like, why does that matter? Well, anyone that's gotten mortgages from us in the last 3 years should be thanking those people, because that allowed us to deploy money so that they can have mortgages. Again, probably some that might be unbankable elsewhere. I mean, let's just keep it real. That's what it is. So it's that money gave others the opportunity to be homeowners.
Right.
And home ownership is critical for that community, because now
Right.
you're going to care about what happens around your neighborhood,
There you go.
the things that are decisions that are being made about businesses, the streets, how you now look at your property. You take care of it now because you own it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that adds to more pride. All the stuff comes along with being a homeowner versus just renting for your whole life. Not even getting into the tax benefits and everything else. But I don't know about y'all, but when I was renting, I hated moving because that became a job in itself to have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do all that and sign and deal with landlords and no. So that's why that money matters, is because it allowed others to become homeowners and take part of that for the first time.
And that's why it matters that we take in significant deposits at this time as well.
Yeah.
Steve, what you just said kind of like reflects on what we started off talking about and what the Helliers really started off, when they started the bank. The same issues that they had with loans for housing
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. That's the same conversation we're having today.
You could legally redline us
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah. And and it seemed like we never grew out of that. See, because and I think it's a city structure thing too, in terms of where people are relegated or delegated to live. When black folks first came here, man, they was living down on Juno. They couldn't go any further. I think Walnut Street was the furthest, and then pretty soon they moved it to North Avenue. But you were relegated to those certain areas. And I think sometimes when you live in cities, that continue to be kind of like a philosophy or ideology. And you don't have to live in a certain area, but sometimes the thing has been part of the community for so long. Sometimes people can relegate themselves there, and you're getting stuck in those modes, And so I think that's kind of like where we are a little bit too, to a certain extent too, is that and especially when it comes to banking, a lot of people in the community, like you said, they're unbanked.
Mm-hmm.
They're simply unbanked.
Yep.
And then you have bank deserts in certain neighborhoods. Man, you can just go east over here on Port Washington Road out on Silver Spring, Port Washington, and just go east on Silver Spring off Port Washington. You see how many banks you're going to see.
Right.
And one block, 2 or 3 blocks. And so that's a big difference. So that's what we're working against. But you had people to come in and say, we're not going to give up. We're going to continue to work. We're going to continue to fight, because we know that the community, really needs it.
Right.
In the long run, it's gonna benefit the city and the community.
Absolutely.
The 250,000 people that live around Columbia Savings and Loan.
Right.
They're gonna benefit.
So it looks like we do have a caller that's holding. Caller, thank you so much for holding. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for taking my call. Assalamu alaikum to you, economic giants in our community. And I just wanted to say this, that with regard to what you all represent, it is one of the key components of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, where it comes to collective economics with regard to pooling our resources. And since you all are the only still standing titan of economics for us in this city and state, and it's as well as myself, I'm saying this and I'm going to practice what I preach with regard to this financial institution. I personally think that if all of us were to contribute to moving, at least having some type of form of account at the institution that you all represent, it would show the people who seek to depress, suppress, and excommunicate us and not involve us in economic things when it comes to moving our community forward here in this city, that we are actually serious. So I applaud you all. And again, I'm speaking to myself as well, that I will make my word bond with regard to assisting in some form of having an account at this institution, because my older brother, he probably still has an account there, and he was the first person that I knew to have it. And I walked past the institution when I was a young child, so I know where you are, I know what you stand for, And again, you represent one of the key components that we lack um, continuity as a nation within a nation that has completely xed us out. And if we're not looking at what is going on right now with what the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, I'll go with this. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad said that there will be three things that the Caucasian would do to us. That he would first enslave us. Second, he would spoil us. And third, he would throw us away. And what has been going on with regard to us in all aspects of our career lives and our literal lives here in the wilderness of North America? Thank you for taking my call and keep up the great, absolutely excellent work. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you so much for calling. And I know that you've called before. We've had a chance to talk before. So I just appreciate that you continue to listen and support the show. We do need to take a quick break now, and we'll come back with some final comments. This is Money Talks with Attorney Coral. We'll be right back. And we're back with Money Talks with Attorney Coral. Have in the studio with me this morning Director Stephen Moore,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Director Dr. Mose Fuller from the Board of Directors of Columbia Savings and Loan Association. And we were today just doing a recap of the annual meeting that the bank had last week with its members. First, let me thank all the members that came out for the annual meeting. The turnout was good.
Good.
That was another thing. So we did appreciate that. Way better turnout than last year's meeting, but I think we did a better job of getting the word out,
Right.
in advance this time, so that people could make arrangements to be with us. Thank you to Latoya for the delicious food that we had, and thank you both for your leadership.
Yeah.
So we've got just a limited amount of time. Doc Fuller, do you want to make some final comments and then turn it over to Steve so he can take us on out here at the end of the show today?
I would just like to echo what the last caller said when he called in, that everyone in our community that is really concerned about, legacy, and concerned about the progress of the community and the growth of the community. You don't have to put all your money there, but I think that if you have any money anywhere that you can put in the bank, excuse me, some of that money should be in Columbia Savings and Loan as a gesture to what you want to do for this community and for your neighborhood and for your kids.
Thank you for that, Dr. Fuller. Steve, what would you like to say?
I'm just proud of everyone from a community standpoint. I'm proud of our staff. I think everyone has really worked hard to get to where we are. We're not done. There's a lot of work still to go. We understand that. We recognize it. We're not blind to, any of the deficiencies that we might have, but, that's always an ongoing challenge that we accept. We have our own internal conversations about a lot of things, but I just want to thank everybody.
Okay. Well, couldn't have timed that any better myself. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll be back with you next week, Thursday, 11 a.m. Money Talks with Attorney Coral. Looking forward to speaking and seeing everyone next week. Thank you guys for coming again.